Good morning, everyone. Bon matin, tout le monde. My name is Anthony Housefather. I am the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Emergency Management and Community Resilience, and it is my pleasure to be here with you today. Au nom de Sécurité Publique Canada, je vous souhaite la bienvenue et je vous remercie de vous joindre à nous. Nous souhaitons commencer par reconnaître que nous sommes réunis sur les territoires traditionnels non cédés du peuple algonquin Anishinaabe. Nous rendons hommage à ces aînés d'hier et d'aujourd'hui et reconnaissons leur rôle continu de gardien de cette terre. We are also grateful for the continued support of the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre, or CIFFC, who plays a key role in supporting federal, provincial, and territorial partners in wildland fire management across Canada. CIFFC coordinates the sharing of critical firefighting resources both domestically and internationally, including personnel, equipment, aircraft, information, and specialized expertise. Today, the Honourable Eleanor Olszewski, Minister of Emergency Management and Community Resilience, and Minister responsible for Prairies Economic Development Canada, will deliver remarks on how the Government of Canada's efforts to strengthen Canada's wildfire response capacity and better protect communities across the country from the increasing threat of wildfires. Suite à l'allocation de la ministre Olszewski, le secrétaire parlementaire Hogan et Kelsey Winter prononceront également un discours qui sera suivi d'une période de questions et réponses. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming the Honourable Eleanor Olszewski.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Thank you so much for joining me for today's event. And thank you to the Canadian Space and Aviation Centre for welcoming us in one of their hangars. It's just an incredible space and the perfect one for our announcement this morning. Before I begin, though, let me acknowledge that Alexandru Yukitan tragically passed away this past weekend from a medical emergency, and he did that while he was responding to a wildfire in Nova Scotia. So I want to thank Alexandru Uwikitan for his service, and also I want to extend my very deep condolences to his family at this most tragic time. So the helicopter behind me is not the subject of our announcement today, but it's just such a great example of the deep and the rich history of our Canadian aerial sector, which has always really played a key role in protecting people and protecting our country from wildfires. As we all know, we're at the start of this wildfire season, and I know that in talking with my provincial and my territorial counterparts, that the tools and equipment that we have at our disposal, these things are top of mind for our communities nationwide. That's because, as we all know, we've seen in the past few years very, very increasing challenging wildfire conditions, with two of the worst wildfire seasons on history taking place in the last 5 years. Et nous pouvons nous attendre à ce que ces conditions s'y poursuivent au cours des prochaines années. Wildfires don't wait for us to be ready. We need to be able to work together as a nation to be prepared so that we can protect Canadians from coast to coast to coast. And that's why I'm just beyond pleased to be here this morning to announce one of our core investments from Budget 2025 for emergency management has been delivered. And that's really thanks to the incredibly hard work of CIFC, which Anthony Housefather has already spoken about. And there are contracts through CIFC now in place to lease 10 additional wildfire-fighting aircraft that will support our provinces and our territories in their response, and that will be available beginning this wildfire season. So all of this is possible because of an investment of $315 million over 5 years in CIFC to lease firefighting equipment, aircraft, so that we can develop a national surge capacity. There'll be 5 planes and 5 heavy lift helicopters, and they will be pre-positioned at locations across the country, and that will be based on anticipated fire activity, and they'll be able to respond to the highest level of need. And I think importantly, they can be repositioned at any time during the season as the situation on the ground changes. So I've already said that Canada has a long and a rich history in aviation and in aerospace manufacturing. And in line with our government's Buy Canadian policy, I'm so proud to announce that the companies that are leasing aircraft to CIFC are Canadian firms, Conair Group Inc., Coldstream Helicopters, and VIH Helicopters. And that's a clear signal that in our country we have the expertise and the technology and the people we need to bring world-class capabilities into our annual battle against wildfires. These aircraft can deliver large volumes of water or fire retardant, and that helps us slow the spread of wildfires, really to act as a support to ground crews as well, and to protect structures, and that's especially important in hard-to-reach areas of our country. Heavy lift helicopters are, of course, multi-purpose in the sense that they can also transport firefighting equipment and crews, and that will help make our firefighting efforts more nimble and more effective. Je tiens à remercier CIFC pour tout le travail qu'il fait pour coordonner le partage des ressources, l'entraide et l'échange d'informations entre les provinces et les territoires. Through their Canadian Multi-Agency Coordination Group, CIFC is the primary forum for triaging and prioritizing how wildfire fighting resources are shared across the country. And I've said this many times before, as wildfires become more severe and more frequent, Canadians expect their governments to be ready. So by investing in new aerial firefighting surge capacity and working in partnership with CIFC, our government's providing strong leadership in emergency management, and that will really help provinces and territories respond more flexibly and more quickly to wildfires across the country. So before I conclude, I also have a message for Canadians, and I really want to urge each and every one of you to make sure that you understand your fire risk in your location and that you do what you can to make sure that your loved ones are prepared for emergencies, including wildfires. And if you go to Public Safety Canada's website, the Get Prepared part of the website, there's a whole host of resources listed there and lots of checklists as well to help you get started in terms of preparing to protect your family and your property. So thank you so much for being here this morning, and I'm now passing the mic to my colleague and my very good friend, Corey Hogan. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you, Eleanor. Good morning, bonjour à tous. Thank you to the Aviation Museum for hosting us today, and thank you for everyone for being here. Now, last year was another challenging wildfire year for Canada. D'un bout à l'autre du pays, des populations ont dû être évacuées, les gens ont perdu leurs maisons et leurs biens, et d'autres, malheureusement, sont morts. Ces épreuves mettent en évidence une triste vérité qui s'impose maintenant aux Canadiens. Les feux de forêt ne sont plus un problème occasionnel, mais une menace constante et grandissante. This year, wildfires have already impacted some communities, including part of Woodlands County in my home province of Alberta, where an evacuation order was issued earlier this month because of an out-of-control wildfire. However, thankfully, the overall start to this fire season has been significantly slower than in other recent years. That does not change the fact that wildfires are becoming more intense and more complex. And as the risk grows, so does the importance of working together across provinces and territories, Indigenous partners and local authorities to strengthen our efforts to keep Canadians safe. Since day one, that's what our government's priority has been, which brings us to why we're here today. And I want to congratulate the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre, CIFC, on this significant milestone in strengthening Canada's wildfire response capacity. Supported by a federal investment from Budget 2025, the 12 assets secured by CIFC are ready for use this fire season to deploy when provinces and territories need them most, protecting communities and keeping Canadians safe. L'annonce d'aujourd'hui s'inscrit dans le cadre d'une longue série d'efforts et d'investissements déployés par le gouvernement fédéral pour améliorer la résilience aux feux de forêt partout au pays. La science est au cœur de ce travail. At Natural Resources Canada, we are advancing the tools and data that wildfire agencies rely on every day. That includes systems like the Canadian Wildland Fire Information System and the Canadian Forest Fire Danger Rating System, which helps predict conditions, assess risk, and guide decisions on where to deploy resources. Through our new government's investments, we are now modernizing these tools so decision makers have faster, more precise information at the pace and scale we need. At the same time, we are strengthening preparedness by supporting wildfire training and investing with provinces and territories to buy specialized equipment. To date, we have supported the training of over 2,000 personnel across Canada, beating our goal of training 1,000 firefighters 2 years ahead of schedule and obviously at twice the scale. We have also signed agreements with every eligible province and territory to support equipment purchases for things like personal protective equipment, vehicles, mobile units, hoses, and pumps, so these brave men and women have what they need to keep communities safe. I want to close by recognizing and thanking the brave firefighters, first responders, Indigenous fire stewards, emergency managers, and volunteers who work tirelessly to keep Canadians safe. Their commitment, often under the most difficult conditions, reflects the best of what it means to serve and what it means to act with urgency, focus, and determination. Le gouvernement fédéral est là pour vous. Nous continuerons de faire progresser les sciences, d'améliorer la prévention et atténuation de feux, et de renforcer la préparation et la capacité d'intervention pour assurer la sécurité de la population canadienne cet été et en tout temps. Thank you very much. Merci. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. Thank you so much, Corey. Now it gives me great pleasure to ask Kelsey Winter, the Executive Director of CIFC, to come make some remarks.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today, and thank you for the invitation to participate in this really important announcement. On behalf of the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre, I want to thank the Government of Canada, our provincial and territorial wildfire partners, and our industry partners for the collaboration that has made this program possible. Each summer, as you've heard from the speakers today, wildfire agencies across this country make really difficult operational decisions in rapidly changing conditions. And as our fire seasons grow longer and more severe, resources are increasingly exchanged across boundaries in order to respond to shifting risk, availability, and operational demands. Wildfire is no longer isolated to one region at a time. Demand peaks simultaneously, and the competition for specialized aerial resources continues to intensify not just in Canada, but globally. The Pan-Canadian Aerial Assets Program, or PCAP, which is coordinated through CIFC, adds something that Canada has never formally had before. And that's a dedicated national aerial surge capacity that can be mobilized through an existing and proven coordination network. The program increases our availability of aircraft when existing fleets within provincial and territorial agencies are stretched thin. And it strengthens Canada's collective ability to move aircraft where it is needed most, quickly, transparently, and collaboratively. For decades, our wildfire system has relied on mutual aid and trust between agencies, and that system remains incredibly strong, but the scale and complexity of our modern wildfire seasons is requiring us to evolve together. The Pan-Canadian Aerial Assets Program supports that evolution through coordination, not centralization, through interoperability, not duplication, and through a deliberate national investment in capacity. And this initiative was intentionally built within our Canadian model. The provinces and territories remain responsible for wildfire management within their jurisdiction, and CIFC's role is to coordinate resource sharing between them fairly and efficiently, particularly when demand exceeds supply. This program builds on that model rather than replaces it. I'd like to take a moment to thank our new industry partners, because they're the reason that this important work is going to happen. That's the Conair Group, Coldstream Helicopters, and VIH Helicopters, bringing together aircraft, crews, logistics, coordination support, and maintenance all together in a very short timeline required a tremendous amount of collaboration and teamwork. We're really excited to continue working with those partners. CIFC is proud to lead the Pan-Canadian Aerial Assets Program on behalf of Canadian wildfire agencies, for the federal government, and most importantly, for the countless of Canadians that are impacted by wildfire every year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelsey, and thank you so much to everyone who's involved with CIFC for all the great work that you do. I had the pleasure of being at Conair last week, and I also am very excited about the Canadian suppliers that are working with us and the Canadian government right now to increase surge capacity. So now, nous passons maintenant à la période des questions. We will now open the floor to questions. To ensure everyone in the room has the opportunity to participate, please limit yourself to one question and one follow-up. We would also appreciate if you could specify at the beginning who your question is directed to. Je vais juste répéter ça en français. Afin de permettre à toute personne présente dans la salle de participer, veuillez vous limiter à une question et un suivi. Et nous serions également reconnaissants si vous précisez à qui vous allez s'adresser la question. So let's proceed with our first question. Who has one? And Matthias will bring the microphone.
Hello, Craig Lord with the Canadian Press. First question, I'm not sure who's best from the CIFC or the government side, but I'm curious what the total fleet size at CIFC is now with these 10 or 12 additional assets. And attached to that, why the decision to lease and not buy when we are seeing these more regular and intense wildfire seasons? Why not invest in permanent equipment?
I can answer the question with respect to why lease and why not buy at this particular point in time. To purchase an aerial fleet, an aircraft that's part of an aerial fleet at this point in time, there's a 3 to 5 year wait, and potentially even longer, to even procure that asset. And so by leasing, we have flexibility with respect to when we lease that aircraft. So now we're not going to be paying to lease an aircraft in December when we don't need it. So we can narrow it to the firefighting season together with the lease, as Kelsey from CIFC has already indicated, come pilots and maintenance and a lot of other aspects to the contract that make it economically very sensible to do that. And again, in terms of timing, which is the most fundamentally important thing, we wanted to make sure that we had aerial firefighting assets in place for this wildfire season. So it was very important to do that at this point in time. And Kelsey, do you have anything to add to what I've said? Please.
Thank you. I can just address the question about how many national aerial assets we had before this program. 0. So now there's 12. And that's an incredibly exciting place for CIFC to be in, with those additional assets that the federal government has allowed us to procure so that we can then support the provinces and territories. But all aerial assets at the moment belong within PTs. These 12 additional are all extra.
Great. Thank you very much for those details. MP Hogan, I had a question. I'm wondering if you have had any conversations with your Conservative colleagues in Alberta, and if there will be any cross-partisan efforts to advance the Remain campaign in Alberta ahead of the vote this fall.
Yeah, well, certainly as members of Parliament, whether Liberal, Conservative, New Democrat, and we have all of them in Alberta, we have been talking about what exactly this means. Pierre Poilievre has said that the Conservative caucus intends to be champions of Remain, as well they should. I think really it underlines that being pro-Canada is pan-partisan. There's not a partisan bend to this. We are all pro-Canada. And certainly we've had many conversations about how to best approach that. There are always going to be disagreements in terms of tactics along the way between people, but fundamentally we're all on the same side. We're on the side of Canada.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. David Thurton, CBC News. Either for Minister Olszewski or Mr. Hogan, can we just get at a very, I guess, basic level, what's just your reaction to that the Alberta Premier is calling the question, that she is posing this question in this format? What's your reaction to this? In fact, can we get both of you to respond to that? Because I think it's pretty important.
Yes, I can start and then I'll ask Corey to add. But, just with respect to my own reaction, honestly, I'm so focused now that we know what the question is and we know what the date of the vote's going to be. For me, I'm just focused on making sure that we have the most decisive result in terms of Albertans that say, they want to stand up for this country, they want to remain in this country, and that they show up to vote on October 19th. So, there was a question about working with our colleagues. From my perspective, I'm going to be working so hard between now and October 19th to make sure that people in Alberta understand how hard the federal government is working to make sure that Alberta voices are heard in government, and we've done that in a number of ways already, including the MOU and countless other efforts. From when we were elected to the present time, we will absolutely continue on in that effort, whether it's helping negotiate a trade agreement with China to help Alberta farmers or any number of other things that we've done. We're going to continue in that vein. And, just for me, I'm heartbroken that we are where we are, but we are where we are. And so we just need to carry on and, as I say, make sure that we have the most decisive win in terms of Albertans that want to remain in Canada. And just in speaking to my own constituents and people across the province, there are countless Albertans who are absolutely ready to stand up for Canada. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's be clear. The vast majority of Albertans are proud Canadians. They're patriotic Canadians. All of the polls show that. This is an agenda that's being driven by a small group of Albertans. Some of them would have been separatists under any situation. Some are more just separatist curious, and we have to have thoughtful conversations with them. But I think the conversation itself is going to be damaging. I don't like that we're here. I don't like that we're in a situation where the government has changed it to make it easier to have a referendum on this, and then subsequently changed the rules 2 more times when that question has run into roadblocks. I don't like that at all. But here we are. And I think now what's required of all good patriots is that they pick up the flag and they say, this is the reason for Canada. This is why we're Canadians. This is why we fight for this country. And you're going to hear a lot of that, not just from myself, not just from Eleanor, not just from this government, but I think from members of Parliament from across the spectrum and people from all walks of life, not just politicians. I can't tell you how many people reached out to me after the Premier's address, people who I would say are not always politically engaged, and said, wait, what is happening here? My God. And the province is waking up to the fact we have this conversation. And it's an important thing that we're involved in that conversation. So my message to anybody out there who is sitting there and similarly stunned that we find ourselves in this moment, you've got weeks. You have 21 weeks until this referendum question. Don't wait 10 to get involved. Get involved today. Put up a flag, get out there, make the argument, share pro-Canada content, make sure a loud online minority is not dominating the conversation.
Thank you for that. And Minister Olszewski, you used the word to describe your emotions. You're heartbroken. It's obviously this is political, but it sounds like this is personal for you. Can you just maybe speak a bit more to that? Why did you choose to use that word, heartbroken? Yeah.
I honestly think it's personal for, as Corey said, the vast amount of Albertans who don't want to separate, and it's actually even unthinkable for most of us, And I've said before, I grew up in Medicine Hat. I moved to Edmonton to go to university. I built my career and I raised my family there. And to me, being Albertan and being Canadian, they're just the same thing. They're intertwined. They are the same thing. And And the heartbreaking aspect is being now asked at this point in time to sort of choose between what aspect of my being that I am. And so, that's the unthinkable and the heartbreaking part of it for me. But I'm not speaking just for myself. It's, as I say, I know I speak for countless other Albertans who are just sad as I am that we are at this point in time. Thank you.
Any other journalists want to ask a question? Okay, so that will conclude the question period. We'll do a little B-roll. So we'll have the minister, the PSN, the executive director walk all the way to the room over there. So if you guys want to take some B-roll of like them walking, there's other planes that you can kind of like film at the same time. So we can take a little bit of time and they can place maybe a couple of meters behind you guys. And after that, we'll, if you guys want to take some pictures, take some B-roll of that. Thank you.